Hey everybody, this is Rob and Jordan, and we are back for Archangel Inc. Live number 32. Jordan, how are you tonight?
I am doing great. How are you doing?
Oh, doing well, doing well. I really like this topic, Jordan. I'm very glad that we're doing this. I think this is a good resource, and you know what? Sometimes it takes a little while before people realize that something might be valuable, and I hope that lots and lots of people find this over time. Very grateful for everybody out there who has commented and participated in our live streams, and yeah, looking forward to creating this additional resource to complement the Ultimate Book Review Manifesto, which we have in written format already. So to recap for anybody who's joining us for the first time tonight, in part one of this video, we covered a number of points. I'll kind of summarize them here. Why are book reviews important? I did provide a link to the book review manifesto, which I will include in the description down below. Verified versus unverified Amazon reviews, things not to do. And then we started talking about what's become sort of your bread and butter, Jordan, and that is how to generate real, authentic reviews from people who are actually interested in the book, even if you don't have a following yet. So so I'll just start kind of adding some of these notes down here below. How to get more reviews, 7 strategies. The first one that we talked about was put a call to action in your book. So that's pretty simple. Basically just encourage people who have read the book to write a review, to write an honest and sincere review, but a review nonetheless, because it is very helpful. It shows engagement. It shows that there is meaning and value to what we are doing as content creators. And we then went about the process of searching for readers who have reviewed similar titles. Do you want to say anything on that, Jordan, as we summarize here?
Yes, so we went over that process in part one. I did a screen share, and Rob asked a ton of good questions, just to kind of, for anyone that never had seen some of that stuff before. But yeah, so this is a huge just hustle. You have to. It does take a lot of time, but it's very doable, and it's still doable today. It just it takes some time and effort. But we shared last week ways that you can do that, and ways that we've learned to speed up the process too as much as possible, because that's very important. We're all trying to save time. We don't want to do something that's just going to take the bulk of our time, but we shared some tips and tricks with that last week.
Yes, absolutely. And this is something that in tech lingo might be called brute forcing the issue. Yes. If you're a hacker, you just kind of want to go through a lot. There's no real shortcut to it. Real quickly, wanted to give a shout out. John, thanks for commenting over on Facebook. We're happy to have you here. And anybody, again, and that wants to comment or ask questions along the way, we're happy to engage and answer as best as we can. But yeah, great summary, Jordan. And then number 3, which we began discussing, is send email and set follow-ups. So that is what we talked about, a tool in particular called GMass. And if you'd like to give a quick summary of that, Jordan, and how you set that up.
Sure. So yeah, GMass, we showed a screen share for this too in part 1 again. GMass is a program that allows you to send emails, send mass emails through Gmail. So it's just a Gmail plugin. It is a free plugin up to a certain amount of emails sent per day, I believe. And after that, you do have to pay. It's not too much. I think right now it's at the time of this video, it's 13 or 20 for $20 for a certain setup. Excuse me, Rob.
No problem.
I didn't drink enough Balti before we started this video. Anyway, yes. Hopefully I can catch my voice back there. But yeah, that is GMass is the program. I use it and I really enjoy it a lot. I love it. Oh, and my wife is bringing me some water. Thank you, Miranda.
Oh, that's awesome. Yes.
Yeah. So if you want to finish it up for me there.
Yeah, absolutely. So Google GMass is basically a mass email sender. So it will simulate the function of an email list, but you can do it through the Google portal. I mean, that's my understanding of it. Is that basically how it operates?
Yeah, if you're familiar with like programs like ConvertKit or ActiveCampaign or MailChimp, it's very similar to that. It's just within Gmail. So you can kind of work it through Gmail and organize everything in there. You could potentially do this type of project with an email service like that, but if you're already using it for a separate list, it can potentially muddy the waters there.
Right.
I find it easier just to separate it in this case and use GMass for its it has multiple features that I really like for follow-ups. And that's, we started talking about that a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't know if we're done our summary, but I'd love to jump into the follow-ups.
Yeah, let's jump right in.
Piece.
So the
Sure.
first section we talked about sending those initial emails, but then part of that is sending follow-ups and developing a follow-up sequence.
Yes, so this number 4 is actually a slightly different plan that I want to talk about in a bit, but finishing up on number 3 is, so yeah, it's a little bit different. So that's a separate tip that we would, I do want to talk about that one too. But yeah, we have this one, send email and set follow-ups. So within GMass, you can set follow-ups for people that have not responded. And we looked at that a little bit. I don't know if we jumped into settings or anything, but you are able to go in GMass and set it up so that it sends auto follow-ups to people that have not responded to your email yet.
Cool.
Which is huge. So if you really, and we actually talk about the numbers that I put together from three or four different projects. If you look on our book review manifesto post, we put some numbers together, and it's staggering. If you follow up, it's just, you're going to get so much better results. And you're going to get the few people that are like, hey, stop emailing me, and that's fine. But you're going to get so many people that say, hey, I missed your first email, or I looked at it briefly and I didn't take it seriously, or I thought it was spam or something like that. Thanks for following up. I'd love to read this book.
Right.
We appreciate, I appreciate you sending this email. I have so many more people, Rob, say thank you for sending me a follow-up than I ever get people that get upset. So
I thought I ignored you the first time. Why are you emailing me again?
Yeah, that does happen. But yeah, for the most part, people are thankful that you're following up. And it really is key in this process, is following up with people.
Right.
So as far as the follow-ups on that step 1, you want to have the auto follow-up sent. Now, jumping into not number 4 yet, but another part of the follow-up series is that once people agree to do it for you, once they agree to read your book, you want to follow up with those people as well. So that launches you into a separate follow-up that's no longer automatic. You are reaching out to those people. Now, of course, you can have, and I have templates that I use and copy and paste and make sure I'm putting the right information in there. But I'm trying to personalize that as much as possible once someone says yes and has responded to me. And we talked a little bit about that last week.
Right. And this is more feasible too, because this is, if you assume, let's say a 10 to 20% response rate from what you're sending out, and maybe you send out 100 initial emails, you're really only having to customize and do this individual follow-up with 10 or 20 of them potentially. So it's less of a raw numbers game, and it's a little bit easier to kind of wrap your head around that process.
Yeah, and the cool part of the process is that at the end of the day, we're not just trying to get up 1 to 2 sentence reviews for our book on Amazon. We're looking for real people that respond and say, I'd love to read it, and are actually taking the time to respond to you, give you good feedback. Those are the people we're after. We're after those people that are really going to leave those quality book reviews. That's what we want on our page.
Right.
And to get that, really, you want to build as much of a personal relationship with those people as you can. When we do it as part of Archangel Inc., when we do it for authors, I always CC the actual author and say, hey, this is just I found the information, I contacted them, but I'm going to try to act as a bridge for you.
Right.
And when I do it myself, I am trying to build those relationships for just readers, not necessarily trying to find people that are going to buy from me later on, but having a group of people and a list of people that you can just go to with your next book or next project and say, hey, I'd love some feedback. It can be absolutely invaluable and worth all this time that it takes to do this process, for sure.
Yeah, that's one of the ways that we describe it to prospects, people who are interested in working with us and going through this process. You are building those relationships, essentially kind of a street team for the future. If you are starting out and you don't have an existing followership, the people who respond to you initially and are willing to read this book, if they like it, they might be people who are invested in future projects that you have and your success, and following you on whatever social media or other platforms that you might be creating content on a regular basis. It's a way to cultivate and then hand over those warm leads, basically.
Yep, you got it.
Cool. All right. And shall we jump on to number 4, the follow-up?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
So number 4, use an email follow-up sequence. I started doing this for my last couple books, and I found it to be really helpful. So it's just another way of just adding a recurring follow-up in a way. So how I have it set up within ConvertKit, anyone that grabs my book, Volcanic Momentum, and signs up for my bonuses, I put them in 2 separate sequences. I put them in my main sequence that goes out to everyone. And I also put them in a one email sequence that's separate from that main list. It's an email that goes out I think it's about 2 weeks after they sign up for the bonuses. And all it says is, hey, I know that you got the Volcanic Momentum bonuses. Hopefully you're enjoying the book. Let me know if you had any trouble getting those downloadable bonuses. And if you have any questions, let me know. But I'd love to get your feedback. If you would like to leave the book a review on Amazon, please follow this link and do that. And it's really short. That's all it says. And it's good to follow up to people and ask them if they're enjoying your book. But it's also just something I have in there that is an automatic. Every time someone signs up for the bonuses, 2 weeks later, they're going to get that email. You could feasibly do that without an auto follow-up. But in terms of trying to save time and using automation for what it's really supposed to be used for, this is a great place to do that.
Yeah, incredibly valuable. So you don't have to keep track of a dozen different people or 100 different people on your email list, draft up a spreadsheet or something and say, oh, tomorrow is May 1st. I know it's been 2 weeks since, Joe Smith had a chance to receive that information. So I've got to make sure to send him an email then. The automation feature on some of these email applications and email list managers, really, really valuable.
Yeah, and I think it's an important check-in too for the people on your list that are reading your book. And really, like I said, it's just say, hey, are you enjoying the book? Did you get the downloadable bonuses that you thought you were? Did you have any trouble with that? I mean, some people, when they don't get them, if there's any issues, they'll email you and say, hey, I didn't get these. Other people may not. They may just forget or not look at it, and it's another check-in point. And like I'm trying to stress here, as much as you can follow up with people in a kind and timely manner, the more success you're going to have.
Right on. And do you want to continue with the screen share that we talked about? Go through any of these additional steps here, or cover any of that, or should we just continue on as we've been discussing it and kind of outlining the big picture of it?
For the next one we have here, Rob, I think it would actually be perfect to do that.
Okay. Cool.
As far as the Google Blogs go, let me pull up my the spreadsheet real quick.
So number 5 here, and again, these numbers, this 7 strategy list is from the Ultimate Book Manifesto on Archangel Inc.'s website. And again, that will be down in the description below, or just feel free to Google it. I'm sure it will come up. And number 5, go beyond Google and find review blogs, go beyond Amazon, find review blogs on Google. So anything you want to say about that, Jordan?
Yes, so this is the one I want to share for. Give me a second. I don't have the spreadsheet up there.
Cool. Well, I can give a little bit of my understanding of these review blogs. Basically, there are people who are interested in content and have maybe topical websites. Oftentimes for fiction, I see that people who these sorts of websites will review new fiction to kind of keep abreast of it and develop a sense of community around being a fiction reader. But pardon me, for other authors, for other topics, there may be people who are just interested in the field, in personal development, in whatever niche of business that you're in, and they might maintain a blog. And if they come across a book that's really valuable and helpful, they might want to share that information. So you want to reach out to those people because they have an inbuilt audience already potentially. So you're speaking directly to the sorts of folks that you don't have access to ordinarily because you haven't built up that followership yet. So you're piggybacking on the followership of established creators, bloggers, whatever in your arena.
Yep, you got it. That was a great intro.
Cool. And shall we add that screen share? It looks like it's just about ready. Cool.
Good deal. The first thing I wanted to show, just real quick, going back to number 4, I pulled up my ConvertKit email too, so you can kind of see. This is the example of the email that I would send to people. And really, it's just a quick check-in. So if you wanted to look at that and copy that and add something like that, I think it's great. I think the more you can follow up with people, connecting with real people about your book, the better. So I did just want to share that real quick, Rob.
Cool.
And yeah, let's jump into that number 5, like you were just introing. So I have my spreadsheet up again. We shared this last week, sample review tracking. Now I have some things up here. These were just samples that I pulled from Amazon, from the process that we shared. But yeah, going one further, this is how I would do it on Google. And actually, Google is potentially in some ways harder to. It's actually not harder to find, but you're going to find less probably overall reviewers, but the process is, at least in my experience, a lot faster. So I like it when it shifts to this. But what I'm doing here is I'm going to highlight the title of this book. I'm not going to do the whole thing because just the main title is fine. So find your lane. The only time the main title is probably not going to be okay is, let me just go to Google real quick. The only time the main title is not going to be okay if it's just a one word that's potentially, not, oh, I'm sorry. I don't know what that just did. Okay, we're just going to type the name of the book there. Yeah, the only time the title might not work if it's a one word, that's a common word for some reason, then you're going to want to put more in there. For the most part, the main title is going to work there, and that's going to be totally fine. Got it. So you can go ahead.
I was going to say, yeah, Malcolm Gladwell's Blink came to mind. If you put in Blink, Malcolm Gladwell's book may not be the first thing that comes up, but if you type in volcanic momentum, Jordan Ring's book will probably come up, for example.
Yep, you got it. So what you're going to type in is you're going to always put the book title in quotations here, and then you're going to do plus book review. And I use book review without quotes there. And you can actually see, I've looked this one up before. You can see this in the history right here, Rob.
Yep.
I like to do this kind of a more advanced approach when searching Google for these book reviews. I actually use these minus sign, and what I'm doing is I'm pulling books at google.com, and I'm pulling Target and pulling Walmart out of the search results. I would recommend doing something like this. You can only use a certain amount of words. I think Google limits it to 23 or something random that you can actually put in a search result. But in this case, it can be really helpful because we're looking for blogs. We're looking for people that have done book reviews, potentially even if they're doing it because people reached out to them and said, hey, would you like to read this book? Very similar to the Amazon process, we're looking for blogs that have reviewed similar books to yours. Right. So in this case, you want your find your lane book review, and then you're minusing out all of these potentials. Now, there's still going to be some that come up that aren't going to be a great fit, but this is a potential option.
Got it.
So what you can do here is once you type this in, you're just going to start looking down this list of different potential places to book review. And if you're not seeing if you're not seeing a book review in the main title, it might be best to switch that. But a lot of the titles here are just going to be book review, and then you're going to be very, very easily able to tell right here that it's potentially a blog. It's not going to be like an Amazon.com, or it's not going to be like a main website.
Sure.
I suggest just looking down through, the first few, and if you can't find any, then it might not be that the book has really that many people that have done book reviews of it on Google.
Sure.
And if that's the case, you just switch the book to a different one and see if you can find this. Now let's look up ultra learning. I just want to see if we can find one real quick, so we can kind of just demonstrate what you're looking for.
Great.
So this is a book review of Ultra Learning by Scott Young. This is exactly the type of title that you're going to be looking for, or Ultra Learning book review. Now this is medium.com, and because I know Medium, most likely the author is not going to have their website or information listed, and they may. So that's something I would check. But to me, this improvism looks like a potentially good site. So really any of these, if you clicked into these, you're looking for the contact information of the person that did this blog, and then you're going to add it to the list right here. So I would add it as far as the website. I would put the website in right here, and we'll just do that real quick just so we can see.
Yep.
Put the website right here, and then I'm going to copy this book. I'm going to copy that, and then I don't really want to click into the website because I don't know what that is. But what we do is we would click into this website, find the person's name and contact information from the website if possible. Yep. And Rob, we mentioned in the last video that once you go to a person's website, you're looking for contact information to get in touch with them. You can find that contact page. You can find it in their social media pages. There's emails listed on YouTube or Facebook. Now, really, you don't want to spend too much time looking because some people just don't have their contact information listed. Yeah. And if that's the case, then just move on. Don't spend too long, but do search for it and see if you can find it. Mm-hmm. And then really this process after we do that, Rob, is very, very similar to what we already shared with Amazon. Because the process with that is what we're finding contact information. Mm-hmm. And once we find people's contact information, we're then going out and sending that initial email from GMass and then sending follow-ups and adding them to our list. It only looks slightly different because you're not necessarily asking for an Amazon book review. You're just going to put in there, hey, I'd love to send you a copy of my book for you to review on your blog. I saw that you reviewed this other book, Ultra Learning. You can even send this website and say, hey, this is where you left the review, just so just to
reference it,
give you that information, to reference it. But I'd love to know if you're interested in doing it for my book too. And again, if your book topic is along the same vein of the book that you're asking for, there's a good chance you're not just emailing random book review bloggers. Now, that's a strategy that you could certainly do. If you could find popular book review blogs, that's something. But then you think about it, you're getting in. If you're looking only for popular book review blogs, you're potentially going to get in line. There may be a lot of barriers to entry with that. They may want it to be a certain length and all these things. When in this case, you're just finding blogs that maybe haven't done too many book reviews, but did happen to do a book review for the book that you're looking for. And they say, hey, this is great. Thanks for contacting me. I'd love to read a free book. That works perfect as far as content for my site. You're doing me a favor. I don't have to buy the book. That's a connection for me. That's a connection for you. Potentially, really cool. I've met some pretty cool people doing it this way. So this just again why I love these methods, because you're not spending time just trying to like we talked about. It's a huge hustle, but at the same time, it's not a hustle of just like just blast it and just send random emails and all this stuff. We're trying to do it in the most targeted way possible.
Right. Yeah. You're building that network and developing those connections in a sincere way. It's not just spamming people and hoping that if I get an email out to 1 million people, I might get 5 of them to actually do what I'm asking for. You're trying to target it, trying to find commonality, establishing a basis for an ongoing relationship and connection, in this professional sense.
Yep. You got it.
Cool. All right. Well, so we've covered that. Shall we move on to number 6? Book review sites. Be wary.
Yes, and I believe I can, at least for the time being, I can stop the screen share.
Okay. Cool. All right, and we are back. So number 6.
So I can see you.
Yes. Book review sites. Be wary. So why should we be wary of book review sites, Jordan?
Okay, this is such a great question because what you're really, the biggest thing to think about when you come to a website and it says, hey, we can get reviews for your book, you really want to be very careful and look at how they're doing their process. Not everyone is as transparent as we are, Rob. Believe it or not.
I can't believe it.
I know, right? There's going to be some potentially shady practices. And what I mean when I say shady practices, this can include paying for people to review your book on Amazon, having maybe they have 10 people that they pay, or 10 people on their team, and those 10 people are doing book reviews for everyone that signs up for that website or process. If the same 10 people are reviewing all these different books, Amazon is going to find out. It's only a matter of time. So that's just something to be wary of and check.
Yep.
But there's so many different ones out there, and we don't want to cover like individual specific websites like that. I would just say, just be careful and do your best. There are some out there that will be they will be transparent about the process. They have a system, and you just have to be careful. You want to read Amazon's terms of service for yourself. I found another book review website the other day, Rob, within a Reddit thread, or it was a KB board thread. And actually, it seemed legit, but a lot of authors were saying, hey, wait a second, there's a question for this, and I don't remember the name. But there were a lot of people that were questioning, is this really within Amazon's terms of service? Are you paying for a review? And it can get questionable sometimes, because you have to think about it. You can pay someone else to do the process for you, and help other real people read your book, but you don't want to pay. You don't want to pay and have me go and read and review your book. Right. I can help you find people, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, you're not permitted to directly compensate for the review. And, presumably that is because direct compensation will lead to biased reviews. If I say, hey, Jordan, I'll give you $5 if you review my book, and I'll give you $5 for every book review that we do together after that. And after that first one, you say, okay, well, Rob, this is a 2-star book. I didn't like X, Y, and Z about it. And then I think, you know what, Jordan, never mind. I'm not going to give you any more books of mine to review. So that is in an effort to maintain, honesty and integrity in it. I think that is the spirit behind the direct compensation. And you're right, we are allowed to pay for the process and pay for services related to it. But yeah, direct compensation to the actual authors of these reviews is outside of the terms of Amazon's scope of service.
Yeah. So one thing to consider when you're looking at those sites, if they have a process where they say, hey, if you give us $50, we'll email your book and it's listing to 100 people or 200 people, and we'll ask them if they're interested. As long as they aren't providing direct compensation to those people, then it's fine. Now, it's one of those things you don't necessarily know whether they're doing that or not, but just be wary. If they're saying, if you pay us $200, we will guarantee that your book gets three reviews. Be careful with that, because any kind of guarantee is really tough. That service provider has no idea whether the people are going to like your book or not. And they can only control that so much. They can give you a range. I think ranges are fine. Maybe if you do this process, you can expect to get 5 to 15 reviews. I've seen websites that have said that, and I think those types of things are fine. But you do have to be very careful, because Amazon removes reviews judiciously, and they will put that review ban hammer. Even in cases where maybe it was a gray area and you're like, oh, I thought that was fine. Just question it, and don't be surprised if you weren't 100% and Amazon comes back and nix some of those reviews. So
yes, they can strike them away, never to be seen again, and never to impact your positive perception. Now, one of them that I wanted to mention, that perhaps this is the one that, or one of them that you have seen before, is Book Sirens. Are you familiar with that one? Have you used that one at all?
No. Do we link out to that one in the post, or?
I don't know that we do, but I know that Hassan Osman had the creator of Book Sirens on, and I'm trying to remember the terms, but the short of it, and I'll include a link down, and I'll post it here just for anybody who's interested. It is just booksirens.com. But I think they are very explicit about really trying to follow Amazon's terms of service, and it is a paid service, but it connects people, interested readers. So they have to solicit interested readers. The readers are themselves not compensated except through being able to access advanced review copies of the book. And they also do that only provide ranges. I think there is some sort of grading system. So depending on how quickly somebody is going to actually complete the review for which they request this review copy, or whether they do it all, they'll have a percentage calculator. Okay, we've sent this person 10 books. They've only reviewed 2 of them. They have a 20% grade. and then you can elect not to make that book available to that party. So I think there is some sort of alignment of incentives there to help make sure that it happens. But nevertheless, the point still stands, and that is on some of these book review sites, there might be concerns, there might be trouble that you run into, and just make sure that you are vetting them with a close eye so that you're not accidentally doing something that's going to endanger your potential review, or worst case scenario, your account in good standing with Amazon.
Yep. And another thought with this, Rob, when I do it myself personally, I really like to do a few different options and not rely on any one method of getting book reviews. We talked in the other video, you have potentially 10 people that say, yes, I will do it. Maybe you only get one of those people. Unfortunately, it's frustrating. People don't follow through. Now, they will follow through more often if you follow up. Again, super important. But don't rely on any one thing. If I had never used Book Sirens before, if it sounds legit and they're doing they're doing right by Amazon's terms of service, then I think by all means try it out. But don't just do that and say, okay, I'm good with my book reviews. I checked that off my list. I'm done. Right. Maybe think about some other systems to add to that too. And the same with our system. Don't just pick one and have that be the only method. If you can spread yourself a little bit, you're just going to have more success. I mean, it's a numbers game in the end too. So just think about that.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. The expression I've seen before, there's no magic bullet, but there might be magic buckshot. So if you kind of shoot in the direction of a lot of reviews and go at it from a number of different angles, then the likelihood that you're actually going to achieve your target is going to be a little bit higher. Any one of these may or may not work, but when you take a full throttle, comprehensive, okay, let me see how many different approaches I can make here, plan of attack, then the likelihood is that you will achieve better results.
Yep, you got it.
Right on. Cool. All right, so that's number 6. And number 7, get your audiobook reviewed too. So how does that happen?
Yeah, so it really is, it's harder to get an audiobook reviewed. It's possible. It does take even more hustle and some time to do this. So right off the top of my head, Rob, I know there's two good ways to start with getting an audiobook reviewed. There's a website called Audiobook Boom, I believe, just off the top of my memory. That does exactly what we were saying before. It sends an email out to interested readers, and you provide the Amazon Audible download codes for the book. But they connect you with interested readers. So you basically, they send out a blast to their list. They say, hey, this author has this book out. Would you like to receive a free audio copy of the book? If you do, they connect you and they say, okay, once we connect you, it's on you to send the code, make sure they get it, follow up with them and all that. So as far as that, I really like that because it's a cheaper service. At least the Audiobook Boom is, and there may be other ones out there too, but I like that because I don't want the company or whoever I'm using the service for to do the follow-ups, because I think that should come from the author, at least in my perspective.
Yes.
You're the one sending the code. Hey, what did you think about my book? Would you like to go and review it? There's some things you could do there that I think is more beneficial than paying more and having the company follow up, because you think about it, they're probably gonna, if the company or whoever it is going to be following up, it's probably going to be on a less personal basis. And that's obviously not going to be for all companies, but generally I would just prefer to do it myself. Right.
It's just additional labor. It's additional overhead for a company. They're less likely to be able to devote the same resources to this as you will when you're personally invested in the success of your book. The other advantage that I would think as well, when you have that connection, when you're actually introduced to somebody who's interested in reviewing the content, is if they did like it, then you might be able to tap into their network. Hey, this is a really awesome review. I really appreciate it. Do you know anybody else who might be interested in this audiobook, who would be interested in receiving a free code and who would enjoy this content? So I think that can be a way to kind of spread the web a little bit wider organically and through these individuals.
Yeah, and the other way is just to offer it when you're doing the book review outreach that we just talked about. If you're going to do from Amazon, if you're going to do the Google blogs, just put that in your email and say, hey, I actually also have free audiobook editions too. Would you prefer that as an option? And if you have an audiobook, yeah, throw it in there. You know, especially, you know, people will appreciate, the people that like audiobooks will appreciate. You know, we do get some emails sometimes. I'm not able to review your book. Sorry, I only do audiobooks. Hey, I can help
As a
you out.
matter of fact, I can help.
Here's a code for you.
Right. So tell me about that code, Jordan. Is it the case? Does everybody receive a code? You have to be enrolled in ACX on an exclusive basis to receive that. How does that work?
So that's a great question. I am enrolled in ACX in Audible's program on an exclusive basis. So that's a great question. I'm not sure if you get codes if you're not. I really don't know the answer to that one, actually.
Yeah, I believe it is. At least last I saw, promotional codes are available if you sign up exclusively. If you do not, sorry, you're out of luck. However, if you are not if that is the case, you are permitted to make it available directly to them on your own. You know, if you have an exclusive relationship with ACX, then you are not allowed, outside of their codes that you offer, their free codes, or offering to purchase a copy for somebody else, to make it available through other channels. But you can say, okay, here's my MP3, or just visit my website, or here's my SoundCloud, and you can access it, you know, through some private terms.
Now, do you know, I know we've mentioned, and I know Dale talks a lot about Findaway Voices. Do you know if you can get codes through their program?
I am not familiar. I don't believe so. The way that Findaway works, they are an aggregator, so they actually will distribute to ACX and the related ACX channels, specifically Audible, iTunes, and Amazon, but a number of other retail channels, as well as libraries, educational institutions, etc. So there may be individual arrangements with some of those distributors, but I'm not certain. I don't know that that's anything that Findaway has advertised. It is something worth looking into. So that if anybody out there knows or is interested in learning more, let us know. We'll make sure to research that and come back with with our findings in the future.
Yeah, because I could see that being very, potentially very helpful, because there are times where I've reached out to people and I've offered the Audible code, and they're like, I'm not signed up for Audible, or they have some issues getting in. I don't think you have to be signed up for Audible to download a book. Is that correct, Rob?
Correct. You don't need to be signed up for Audible. You can absolutely not be enrolled in I think it's their Audible Listens program, which is a monthly subscription that gives you access to certain numbers of titles per month or per year or whatever. But you do need to have an account. And typically it will be the same sort of account. I think you could even use the same credentials as Amazon, because Amazon is the parent company. You may need to establish one that is related but separate. But nevertheless, you do have to have an account. You do have to have an email address associated with an Audible account in order to download it and install it on your listening device, on your desktop, on your mobile device, whatever. But you do not need to actually provide them a credit card and billing information if you are just purchasing or just redeeming a free promo code.
Awesome. Good stuff.
Yeah, cool. All right, so making audiobooks available for reviews is number 7. So that covers the major steps that we outlined here. There are a couple of other things, though, that we wanted to talk about. And the first is endorsements. What are endorsements? So
endorsements are anytime you're asking anyone, you can ask your friends and potentially family if they're in your genre. Endorsements are short blurbs for your book that you're sharing, just to kind of say, hey, someone else other than me has read my book.
Right.
Now, the cool thing about this is you can use these in your marketing, and like we said, they can be from anyone. Now, you don't necessarily want to have, your mom and your brother and your sister, and then put them, and everyone sees, why are all these guys endorsements? Why do they all share his last name?
Right.
You don't want to do that, but there's no rule that says you can't do that. So that's just thinking about that. Endorsements really they help, and I think they're the most important when we're adding editorial reviews onto an Amazon page.
Yep.
And you can do that for your book through Author Central. You can add editorial reviews, and that's where you're gonna see the bulk of the use of endorsements. Now, some people will use those endorsements. They'll put it on the back cover of their book. or potentially on the front cover if it works with the cover design wise and all of that. Sometimes it just doesn't, and that's okay. You don't need to have an endorsement on the front cover, but that's just typically where you might use them. But for me, I think the money is in putting them on the Amazon editorial reviews. And the cool part about that is you can edit that at any time. You don't have to. There's always that chicken and the egg situation when it comes to endorsements and your book. Are you going to send out a potentially semi-finished copy to people and then try to time it? Or are you going to wait till your book is out and then start your whole marketing process? Then potentially you're going to have a huge delay when you are actually going to launch your book. So those are some questions. But in our process, we focus mostly on the Amazon editorial reviews, and you can put those up anytime.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, that when you are putting the endorsement, soliciting the endorsements, you need to have something for somebody to actually read and review and say, okay, I endorse this book, this is good. Yeah. But as you're trying to schedule and plan out and time your release, you don't want to necessarily have the whole book out there, release it, then solicit endorsements, and then wait on launch. We already typically advise about a 30-day, sometimes a little bit longer window after all the files are ready to go before you actually launch, so you can get a lot of these things in sequence. But if you're waiting on endorsements and then you have to go back in and reproduce the book, go back into production, that is, into the book, it could delay things a little bit further, and that is not advised. I do see that the editorial reviews used really effectively, and as you mentioned, on a rolling basis. So for example, if you have maybe one endorsement beforehand, somebody you're able to get to provide an editorial review, that's great. But maybe of the first 5 or 10 reviews that you get, 2 or 3 are really solid, really thoughtful, have good pithy descriptors of it. You can pull those and include the individual's name, or just say what customers are Amazon customer, and you don't have to list them out. But when people see them, they're not necessarily going to notice or care that it's an Amazon customer. But if they have positive things to say about the book that you want to highlight, then that is a good opportunity to do that. Yeah.
And it made me think of another question that so many good questions that come up when we're doing this, Rob. What we're just talking about, the question of when should I send a copy of my book out? When should I start any of this? Any of the stuff we're talking about, when should I even think about starting this? For me, personally, and this is what I suggest, the closer to the final product you can get, the better. But if you're confident in your manuscript and you're like, you've gone through the editing phase and it's been proofed, and potentially not even proofed, but for me personally, I like to have the book proofed before I send it out for reviews. Right. And that's what honestly I would suggest. So we'll go with that. So when your book is proofed and it's ready to go, you can, at least I do it. I download as PDF in Google Docs, and I send it out and I share with people. And I say, hey, this is my finished manuscript. It's still going through, the final editing, formatting process. So this isn't the final, but this is pretty close. Right. And for the most part, when people are getting ARCs or advanced review copies, they understand that, and that's okay. Yep. So yeah, when you're thinking about this process, don't do it too early, because what you definitely don't want to do is send an unfinished manuscript to someone and they leave you a bad review. Wait, but I fixed that. Well, not in the copy they read. So
how do they know? They're not going to go through and read it again necessarily. So you want to respect the reviewer and the endorser's time, and allow them to see you putting your best foot forward, and not have to do extra work on faith that your best foot forward will be coming.
Yeah.
Cool. All right.
I know that was a tangent, but I thought it was an important one to address there. Just a big question.
Yeah, no, it is. It's very important to figure out, because part of what gives value to the process, the coaching and everything that we do here, is there are all these different steps. And if you might realize, oh crap, I should have been starting on this 2 weeks ago, or I could have, there's going to be another month before I can do that, but I can do A, B, and C instead. Just figuring out the whole constellation of actions that need to occur in order for this to run off and be effective and actually work as intended and timed and sequenced appropriately. It can take a little bit of forethought, a bit of experience, and it's very helpful if you have somebody guiding you along who's been there and who can share their insight and their feedback on how this whole process works, what you can expect, and then answer various questions along the way, so that when you run into something that you haven't seen before, you don't have to go down a Google rabbit hole, start searching those, Kindle boards and, online forums and so forth, trying to figure out who's been in the situation before and who has a good answer, and who has, I guess, authority and credibility that you actually believe whatever answer it is that they're giving you. So, not to hard sell what we do, but if you have been through this process before, or if you haven't been through this process before, just know that there's a lot to it, and there may be different things that you don't expect that you might have to be familiar with in order to navigate it as effectively as you can.
Yep, you got it.
Cool. All right. So how to get book endorsements. I think we sort of covered that.
Yep. Yeah, the only thing I would add with that, Rob, is how to, and the whole how to do it. And you just want to make a list of people that you're going to reach out to. Right. These emails are just going to be as personalized as you can. When I've done these, you can go from a template, and that's fine, but you're really trying to make it as personalized as possible to the people you're reaching out for. I don't necessarily recommend trying to send mass emails to get book endorsements. I think really this is just going to come from people that you know. And if you don't know anyone, I think that's obviously going to be tough. But I think if you really rack your mind and brainstorm, there's at least someone that you can contact. Even if you're writing a book about going to school, you could potentially contact a teacher or someone with a degree. I think just think creatively. There's always people you can contact. It doesn't have to be people that are huge in the space to be a good endorsement.
Yeah. And what would you say is the difference between a review and an endorsement? Is there any difference aside from the fact that one is placed on the editorial review section on your Amazon sales page and one typically would not be?
Yeah, so I think of, and that's a great question, because the lines kind of do get blurred a little bit, because you can use your Amazon reviews as editorial reviews. So it's a very similar, you can use them for similar things. Where they're different is for book endorsements and for the really good non-Amazon reviews for your book. You're reaching out to people that are kind of outside the Amazon sphere. You're not going to be reaching out to these people and saying, hey, can you leave my book a review on Amazon? It's a different kind of process. Right. And again, if you're mixing, it's good to mix and do some different strategies there. But these give you really hopefully personalized reviews for your book that you can use as endorsements, editorial reviews. Right.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And the other difference that I would say, in my experience, endorsements are often from people who have some sort of stature in your field, ideally somebody who has experience, maybe somebody who's in your target demographic, who might be somewhat well known. Like you mentioned, if you're writing about teaching, maybe get an educator. If you are writing about starting a business, maybe talk to somebody who owns a business, get an endorsement from them. Having a reader who gives their own review, if they may or may not be a part of that status granting class of individuals that you're trying to reach out to and say, hey Jordan, I know you've written a book on building momentum and setting life goals. I have a book on a similar topic. Would you write an endorsement for me? It's just something, if you enjoy this, I'd love for you to say a few words and to feature it on the back cover, feature it on my press release, feature it on my Amazon sales page, feature it on my website, etc. And you are more explicitly making them a part of your marketing effort and your effort to expand and broaden their reach, as opposed to reviews, which are more like end user reviews. They're sort of the end result. Obviously, you want people to go out and use your information and be positively impacted by it, but they purchased the book. You're not necessarily trying to leverage their review in the same way as you would an endorsement.
Yeah, so that's a great point, Rob, and it makes me think of something we talked about in part one, where as authors, we don't necessarily want to be trading and exchanging reviews with other authors. But when it comes to endorsements, that's great. If me and you are both writing a self-publish or how to self-publish book or how to get book reviews or anything like that, We
Right.
could certainly review the book for each other and add that as an editorial review or an endorsement. Now, I wouldn't ask you to go on my page and leave an Amazon review, because that doesn't work. Amazon doesn't want us doing that.
Right.
And that's fine. You can still ask people to read and check your book out. That's just the main difference there. So yeah, other authors, other people that, really you're just thinking Amazon reviews are going to be your readers, and endorsements and people for those editorial reviews are mainly going to be the people that are in your field, other authors. I reached out to, for my latest book, The Balance Point, I reached out to another entrepreneur and had him do an endorsement. And I also reached out to the Camp Gladiator company that I was doing. I wasn't working for them. I was doing Camp Gladiator. And I said, hey, you guys have like a really cool business model where you bring in trainers, and it's very interesting. Hey, I think this would be perfect for your trainers. Would you do this? And it took a lot of following up to get them to do it. But I said, hey, this is perfect. I really want your endorsement for this, please. I'm a great camper. I've sung your praises, and it's great. It's worked for me personally. I told them a little bit about my story, and they did get back to me, and they did it, and that was really cool. As a final note for me on that, Rob, just made me think of this one. Don't set your sights too low with this. I think certainly, I would have thought in that case, I don't know if they're probably too busy. They're a really big company. I don't think the COO or CEO or whatever, whoever it was that ended up doing it, he probably doesn't have enough time to check through this or even look at this. And that's not necessarily the case. And in my case, I had to do some legwork. I had to do some follow-ups. I brought in one of the trainers and said, hey, would you follow up with them? Because I really want this. They were like, yeah, sure, we'll do that. We know you've been a good camper and whatnot. So just don't set your sights too low with that. I think there's certainly, if you really believe in your topic, you really believe in your book, you certainly can get some really good endorsements from some high level people. Yeah, I think.
Yeah, that's awesome. I really appreciate you sharing that story. And yeah, don't think that everybody is Tony Robbins or Oprah. You call up, I want to talk to Tony. I've got something that he's going to love. But, oh, sure, no problem. We'll patch him right through. It doesn't probably doesn't happen in situations like that. But if you do have a relationship, absolutely be ambitious, be bold. What's the phrase? Fate favors the bold, right? So reach out to people that maybe feel like a reach, and try to contact them. And again, if you do believe in it, and you have that inspiration and motivation to really make that connection, then follow up can actually produce some really good results.
I think there can be a lot of fear in that, Rob. I experienced that as a first-time author. Oh man, I don't want to put this out there. I don't want people to reject me. But the worst thing people can say is no, right? And that's okay. You just move on, especially if you get a response that says, "No, I'm not interested at all." Oh, okay. Well, thanks. Thanks, no thanks.
Thanks for the reply. All the best to you.
And then move on and just keep asking. I'm a huge fan of that, just asking, because there's no reason not to in most cases. Yeah.
No, great point. Cool. All right, so let's move on and start to wrap things up here. Book reviews with benefits. So what sort of benefits might come about with book reviews, Jordan?
So I love this one because when I've done this process for the Google blogs and Amazon book reviews, I've gotten people that have responded extremely positively and left really good reviews. I've had people go and say, "Hey, I'd love to give away a couple copies of your book to my audience." Oh, that's super cool. You've had people say, "I'd love to have you come on my podcast." I would love to come on your podcast. I'm launching a book. Thank you. And then I've had people do YouTube reviews of my book, and those have been really cool because it's, again, the more you can share other people other than you enjoying your book and reading it, the more powerful it is. And I've just really had that's probably my favorite part about doing it. Almost every time we do the process, we get someone that reaches out and is super positive, leaves a really good review, and just wants to connect. And that's just awesome. I love it. It's definitely, there's always some side benefits there. As long as you're doing the process and reaching out, it's one of those things. If you're going to keep reaching out, you're going to keep asking, eventually you're going to strike gold. Just keep working at it.
Right. And I'll share just a short anecdote. One of the reviewers who you reached out to was interested in connecting with Archangel Inc. with me. And we had a nice conversation yesterday. There may be some future collaboration. in the mix for us, and all because he had his contact information available on his website and had previously created a review for a title that was kind of in the wheelhouse of one of the projects that we're working on.
Yep.
So there are all sorts of good connections potentially out there waiting to be had that you can capitalize and build upon by going through this process.
Yeah, it's cool. I've gotten so many people, Rob, that just, so many more positive people than negative that say, hey, I can't review your book right now. I'm way too busy, but way to go. Like, I love the hustle, love the follow up. I love your approach. You're doing it in a kind, just respectful way of my time. And yeah, people like that. And the more you can do that, then you're just sending some goodwill out there too.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Cool. All right. So we covered that, connections, invitations to podcasts, guest posts, potential video reviews, and requests for giveaway promos. Hey, would you send me 3 copies of your hardcover book because I want to give them out to my audience, or something like that. So be a good way for you to leverage some of the advertising budget that maybe you have set aside for this kind of thing. So very cool. There is a note here from John, which was from earlier on Facebook. Our feed locked up. It looks like it was clear and coming through on our end. John, hopefully you are able to join us at least on the replay if it wasn't working live for you. So thank you for the tech issue, or for the tech notification. Hopefully there aren't any catastrophic issues there, and the replay at least will be coming through. All right, and in summary, Jordan, book reviews are important.
Yes.
And anything you want to say to wrap that whole topic up in a nice little bow?
I think just the first thing I want to reiterate is that this is a complicated process. As me and you were talking about it, there were some things I'm like, oh, I could have mentioned that, or we could have gone off on a tangent and talked about that. There's a lot to it, but there's so much value, especially as a first-time author, putting yourself out there, just asking, like we said, and just requesting that. I think that's the biggest piece. Try to get over your fear of sending your book out to people. For the most part, no one's going to steal it and publish it and post it themselves. It's just not something to worry about. Just get your book out there, get some feedback, and just start building those reviews. I like the last thing. Go get them, Tiger.
Go get them there. Exactly. I'll reiterate all of that you mentioned here. They're very helpful, and as you can see, I mean, it took us 2 hours of live content here to go over.
I thought we might be going for a part 3.
I know, and we probably could if we wanted to dive in on a couple of these topics a little bit more. But as always, if you have questions, if you have thoughts, if you have experiences with getting book reviews, whether that's been positive or negative, has it been difficult? Have you found anything that's worked really well for you? We'd love to hear that. And it is achievable. Hopefully that these couple of hours of content here, as well as the linked description, or the linked blog post, will provide a good starting point for you. If you are starting out, particularly if you're starting out without a huge following that can instantly generate you a dozen or 100 reviews, then you are going to have to do some legwork here. But hopefully this has been helpful and demystifies the process a little bit and gives you some tangible nuggets to kind of dig your teeth into and say, okay, I get it. I can do that. I can work on this little piece today, and maybe the next little piece tomorrow, and build your reviewership.
Yep.
Cool.
Love it.
Awesome.
Good stuff.
Yeah. Sounds good. All right. Well, Jordan, thank you very much. Everybody out there, we appreciate folks who've tuned in, and we love your feedback. As mentioned, if you liked it, please click that like and subscribe. Show us love on Facebook, on YouTube, and we will see you folks next time.
Good deal. See you guys.